But first, you know, the really frightening thing about China, it's not just that it's threatening us with trade bans to make us shut up about wanting an independent inquiry into how this coronavirus started over there. What's really frightening is how many other countries China is also threatening. Neighbours and friends, New Zealand, Japan, Vietnam, more. That is the bigger picture. This China under dictator Xi Jinping has become an aggressive and dangerous power. And to demonstrate that, I'll show you something amazing from a press conference on Monday from China's Foreign Ministry spokesman. But let's start with Australia, because this bullying is getting completely out of hand. The world knows that this virus came from China. Since then, it's killed around 300,000 people around the world. And we have a right to ask, how did it start? How did it spread? But China doesn't want outsiders checking what it actually did. And in April, China's ambassador warned our government to shut up or risk a consumer boycott. Maybe the ordinary people in China will say, why should we drink Australian wine, eat Australian beef? And what a surprise. China has now threatened us, not just with a tariff that would destroy our exports of barley, but it's stopped taking beef from 4 of our big meat exporters. It says there's problems with food safety regulations, but that is news to the bosses of those abattoirs.
It was a surprise, certainly, that we've been notified that we've got some non-conformities.
As for the barley that we're trying to send over there, the Prime Minister today said China's claim that we were dumping a subsidised crop on China was completely false.
We hold concerns for the way this issue is being progressed at this point in time. Any suggestion that Australia's agricultural exports are the subject of some sort of government subsidisation is completely and utterly rejected.
Privately, government ministers reckon these bans are punishment for us asking for that virus inquiry. Publicly, they won't say that. They're trying to lower the temperature. But the truth is so clear. We are being blackmailed. We are being bullied. And there's 3 bits of evidence, one of them so shameful. First, we've got business leaders today saying they're scared they could be the next and pleading for calm. The Minerals Council, Australian Grape and Wine, they know. Second, and this is appalling, Victoria's Treasurer Tim Pallas today actually blamed the Morrison government for upsetting China with his call for a virus inquiry. He said, perhaps inelegant interventions have essentially seen farmers lose trade around barley and meatworks losing work around meat. Now, Pallas is not just making that link between that inquiry we want into the virus and these bans as punishment, but it's actually blaming Australia. He's crawling to this Chinese dictatorship. Pallas, and remember, this is the treasurer of the one state that signed up for China's Belt and Road Initiative. One, China wants to magnify its power. He even has the hide, this Tim Pallas, to add that we should instead be sorry for China, saying what they don't need is vilification of one nation who've gone through a very traumatic time themselves. But I said there was a third sign that China is bullying us. China's officially said that, no, these bans have nothing to do with our calls for a virus inquiry. But the dictatorship's English language newspaper, the Global Times, now says the latest meat import suspension and the possible imposition of major tariffs on Australia's barley exports don't necessarily represent China's economic punishment for Australia. But it is time for the country to start sending positive signals to prevent bilateral relations from further deteriorating. Got that message? And in fact, just to underline it, China's Foreign Ministry spokesman, Zhao Lijiang, yesterday repeated exactly that sort of link at a press conference. Again, he said, no, suspending our meat exports wasn't punishment for calling for a virus inquiry, but in the very next breath, he said that inquiry was just a political manoeuvre, by the way, and Australia should stop. But as I said, we actually have to look at the big picture, because all those business leaders and all those China apologists and all those crawling politicians like Tim Pallas, they're so wrong. It is not Australia's fault that we have this dispute, because we are sure not alone in getting pushed around by China. I mentioned that spokesman for China's dictatorship, Zhao Lijiang. Well, I actually had a look at the press conference he gave in Beijing on Monday, at the questions that foreign journalists were asking him. And it was such an eye-opener. It was amazing, a real sign of how many countries China is right now bullying. In this one press conference, we had journalists ask about China stealing US intellectual copyright and allegedly bullying the head of the World Health Organization and censoring information on the virus. They also asked why an Indonesian sailor had died as a virtual slave labourer on a Chinese fishing boat and had his body tossed overboard. More seriously, there were questions about China stealing the South China Sea. Why was China banning Vietnamese fishermen from islands that Vietnam claims? And why was China's Coast Guard chasing away a Japanese fishing boat from islands that Japan claims? China's spokesman even warned New Zealand to stop backing independent Taiwan, which China claims as its own.
都不应抱有幻想，希望新西兰有关人士停止造谣生事，多做有益于两国互信与。
All that bullying, and of Australia too, in one single press conference in Beijing. So it is not us. It's not just us. It really is China. It really is a threat. In fact, it's threatening us right now. And anyone pretending it isn't is on the wrong side of a fight that we can't afford to lose.